Hey, Eric here with 30 by 40 Design Workshop, back with another installment of the vlog. Today in the vlog, I want to kind of bring you into the studio, talk about what's happening. You may have seen in a recent video of mine where we talked about being over budget with a project. So that's having some impacts on the studio. Thought I'd bring you in and show you the things that people don't talk about in practice very often. I'm a sole practitioner, which means I'm responsible for everything here, bringing in new work, processing that work through the design process, completing it, and all the meetings, emails, invoicing, all those things fall under my responsibility. As a sole practitioner, you have to maintain this kind of careful balance between new work, work that's in progress, and work that's finishing up. When there is creative work that's extrinsically motivated, that is work that's commissioned by others, external to you, there's a natural cycle to that work. People will delay projects. Financial situations will change, personal situations will change. And if your entire creative life is tied up in those extrinsic motivations, when something is delayed, you'll need to fill that hole in with something else. And that can be a struggle. So finishing up this barn studio project, this is actually going into construction right now. They're casting the slab this week. So we had some framing members to figure out some coordination to do on these eave details here. It was done as a schematic set, and we now have to figure out what some of these details at the corners are. So it's not uncommon to do a set of details for a schematic or design development set of drawings and then have to return to them to do some additional detailing. And this practice is called detailing because it's describing all of the parts and pieces and materials and components and dimensional requirements that the contractor is going to need to actually construct the structure in the way that you're intending them to. So if we just return to the drawing set here for a moment and we look at a framing plan for this particular area, it's right in this zone in here. We know what the orientation of some of the framing members are here and some of the members are here, and we've cut a section here to say, okay, this is a 3.5 by 7.25 continuous beam here that's going over a post, but where do we locate that? We're saying it's positive 8 plus 8'6", but how does that relate to the outriggers that are framing this canopy here? How does it relate to all of the other parts and pieces that we're describing on the elevations? So if we come over to this elevation right here, if we're cutting a section through here, we have some sliding barn doors, we have a fascia here, we have roof shingles that are turning down to a vertical wall, we have cedar siding, we have a covered canopy. So there's a lot of things happening in this zone that is not apparent until you go into a deeper level of detail. So the purpose of this details to basically say, okay, these are the parts and pieces that make it up. But detailing is also a process of figuring out sequence. So sequence-wise, from a construction standpoint, obviously we're going to be starting with the foundation and then we're moving up here into the rough framing. So the first thing that's going to come in this section is our structural members that are going to form the shell of this building. So we have a beam that's making up this covered canopy. We have a post that is supporting that beam, and we know exactly where that's located because we've located it on the foundation plan. Then we're going to come and frame our roof rafters on top of that. That's going to sit on here. These are engineered framing members, and this is all light wood construction, so it's just sticks essentially. Over here, these are hurricane ties. And then we have some blocking here. So blocking in a section is just essentially a piece of wood. It's a 2x6 or a ripped 2x10 or a ripped 2x12. It's basically a piece of dimensional lumber that the contractor modifies to fit the current situation here. We're going to describe what the roof slope is. I think it's 9 and 12. And this subassembly here is going to be in place first. Then it's a matter of figuring out, okay, well, what relationships do we want to show? So in the elevations, we have this roof system that's sloping down and it turns to, that's our roof system here, and then it turns vertically here. And then we have this fascia piece that comes along. And this fascia piece is meant to conceal a barn door track. So where do we mount the track? Well, the track has to mount to something that's solid. So we're basically going to be sheathing this building with plywood or OSB, as it may be. So that's the next layer that happens. This plywood gives it rigidity and strength, and it's also a substrate that we can attach all of our finishes to. So we have the post and the beam, we have the roof structure, we've now skinned it with this plywood skin, and then we're gonna come and attach all of our final finishes to that. So we've got a vertical cedar boarding that's coming up, and we have to vent all of this siding. So we're gonna leave a little gap here. We want the cedar to continue across the soffit. That's what this is right here. And it'd be nice if this little gap showed itself on the column here, because we're gonna have a wall on this face that's continuing here. It'd be nice if the column had some sort of a reveal to reference that. So we're gonna call that reveal out like that. And there's probably a detail note that says, 1/2 inch reveal, kerf at column top. So there's that. That's kind of a nice detail. So that's something that we need to figure out, that we need to specify. Otherwise, the column just goes up and it meets the, the underside of the soffit assembly. Now we want this cedar to return to this zone in here so that we don't see any end grain or any joints here. So we'll miter that corner. Then we have a cedar fascia. Now to get this cedar fascia aligned with the soffit, we want to be calling out what dimensions or what the location of the bottom of that soffit is. So the contractor knows, okay, that's where I need to locate that. And in order to fasten this cedar in the end, we need some wood blocking in here. And because this extends above that wood blocking, we're going to need probably some plywood, something that's a little more rigid in here. And then we're going to form the bottom of our concealed gutter. We're going to make this out of plywood, and then we're going to have our EPDM, our waterproof membrane, that comes up and over, and it forms this sort of bathtub in here, and we'll extend that up onto the roof. And then we have our metal drip edge that's coming here, and we want to lock that in with a vertical flashing piece that comes down here. Roof shingles. We've got a coping piece here that'll get locked in there. And each one of these parts and pieces we're going to call out with notes. So we have continuous aluminum gutter, we want a scupper at the end, we have 24 gauge aluminum drip edge, what color it is, and you can decide to sort of note it in here or note it in the specifications. This project was small enough where we didn't have a separate set of specifications, so we're actually calling it out on the drawings. Another good practice is to say, if you have common roof construction, we're going to say typical roof construction, and then elsewhere on the sheet, we're going to describe what that is. If you make a change to any one of these components in the typical roof construction, say we decided not to do spray foam as the insulation in the roof here, we could decide to, maybe we went to blown-in bat or something. That note then gets changed in the typical roof construction rather than changing it on 30 different details. So during my hike today, I was listening to Tim Ferriss's podcast, and he had on J. Gordon Levitt. He basically talked about how after a series of rejections from other people who thought he wasn't capable of producing a film for Cannes or Sundance, he just decided that he was going to hit the record button himself. Creatives are coming to this realization at this time because the internet has made publishing your work just infinitely easier than it used to be. J. Gordon Levitt started this site called Hit Record, and it's sort of a wordplay, hit record and hit record. One is the object, a hit record, versus the action, hit record. Hitting record is, the act of pushing the record button on your camera or whatever the self-publishing mechanism that you're using is, and just having the courage to step out on your own and make something and put it out in the world. To be criticized, to be loved, to be hated, that's all part of it as an artist, as you know. When you work and live in a place like this, which is pretty isolated, those outside influences can have a big impact on your business and how you move forward. It's raining. I'm gonna get out of here. It's still pretty beautiful, actually. Okay, we just selected the winner of the competition, the business plan competition. So hopefully that's going to be announced, maybe in the next month or so. So I wanted to share with you some of the lessons that I took away from being a jury member on the architecture business plan competition. I really viewed these not as, say, holistic business plans, but really more like a schematic design, that there was these seed ideas. They were interesting concepts that maybe needed further development, but there were a couple of themes that emerged that I thought were kind of cool. One of the exciting themes I thought was this idea of being able to scale up your reach and impact using networks, using external resources. It allows the small firm owner a bigger reach in the world. It allows them to maintain a low overhead, so when projects are delayed or put on hold, that the workforce can be scaled quickly. It allows you to practice around the globe and team up with other, collaborators that you may not have had access to otherwise. This idea that, lifestyle is important, and building and designing the kind of life that you want to live and having your career conform to that lifestyle is something that I saw in almost every single proposal. And I think that's a real shift in our work culture today, and something that people are just trying to figure out how to adapt their business model to that. And the other theme that I thought was interesting was this idea of a diversification of our services. We are strategic planners, we are creative thinkers, we're problem solvers, we're graphic designers, we're able to visually and verbally communicate our ideas to others. We have this great skill set that we can bring to bear on a whole host of problems in the world. And it's time that we move beyond just thinking about architects as being able to build buildings and serve clients one-to-one. So I hope this video has been helpful for you. It's helped me to kind of articulate my own thinking on this subject and help me to kind of recalibrate a little bit. Work in the studio does fluctuate, new projects come and go. Building a balanced practice is key to making sure that you have a long-term sustainable business model. And I hope this is inspiration for you and permission for you to go hit the record button and to publish your own work. Find the things that intrinsically motivate you to be a creative person, to live a creative life, and go out there and make things. All right, cheers, my friends. Thanks for watching.